Hello and welcome to Ask Your Academic. Today's session will cover the MSc Biomedical Sciences and the MRes Biomedical Sciences. And we're joined by our programme leads who will answer any questions that you have about the programmes. So please do use the chat box if you've got any further questions, and we've got some questions that were submitted beforehand. We are recording this session, so please don't panic if you miss anything. We will share the recording shortly after for you to watch in your own time. Elaine, would you like to kick off with introductions?
Yeah, so I'm Dr. Elaine Huston, and I am the lead on the MRes Biomedical Sciences, but also quite involved with the MSc Biomedical Sciences as well program.
And I'm Dr. Catherine West, so I'm the lead for the MSc Biomed Sciences and help Elaine out with the MRes. So we work closely together on a lot of these aspects.
Great. And could you just give us an overview of both of the programmes, please?
Yeah, so I can start. So we have two programs which run side by side to each other. So the MSc and the MRes are have share all of the content from semester one. So semester one is a talk component for all students. So we have three talk courses that all students will take part in, and this builds up research skills essentially in biomedical sciences over that first semester. In semester two, the two programs deviate a little bit, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. So the three programs or the three courses in the first semester are molecular genetics of disease, which looks at human health and disease and the different types of techniques that are used to investigate that, both at molecular, genetic, and cellular levels. It is a very student-led course, as in you'll get a lecture earlier on in the week or a seminar earlier on in the week, and then you'll be set some activities for during the week to work in groups perhaps, and then come back and maybe do a presentation or do some discussion at the end of the week. It might be an activity that you're doing at the end of the week based on what you've learned during the week, and that helps you to build up your knowledge, but also skills in kind of evaluating literature and exploring information databases, etc., that are really important in terms of investigating genetics at research level. We also have a lab-based course during that first semester, which really looks at molecular techniques. So you'll be in the lab carrying out techniques, doing things like PCR, cloning, transformations and sequencing. You'll also look at isolation of DNA, RNA, and proteins. You'll do some quantitative PCR as well, and then also some protein work looking at kind of electrophoresis, gel electrophoresis, and Western blotting as well. The emphasis in that course really is about understand or critically evaluating results and understanding how to design experiments as well. So really important skills in terms of kind of moving on with the course and going into your projects later on. We also look at how you communicate that information in terms of kind of written communication. So we'll look at lab report writing and also some grant proposal writing as well. And then the third course, which Catherine runs, is the presentation skills course. So I don't know whether you want to say something about that, Catherine.
So yeah, in presentation skills, we develop your confidence and skills in communicating science. So talking with each other about science that you've done, learning how to do a scientific poster and speaking about it, and then how to give a scientific presentation. We give you practice in these and then assessment in these. And that's because presentation skills and communication skills underpin many of the assessment through the rest of the program and is fundamental for majority of careers that you might go into afterwards. And so we want to help you build up a range of different skills that you need there.
Okay. So that's kind of semester one where you'll all be together, and then in semester two, the MRes students go directly into an independent research project, and that period runs from January to the end of July. So you can either go into two separate projects for the two semesters, or one long project over the two semesters as well. And I know students are always interested in what those what types of projects there are in terms of the ones that we offer. So these are provided by researchers across the College of Medical, Veterinary and Life Sciences from all the different schools. And we have a vast array of projects. So I just pulled out some from this year. So we have some in the Cancer Research UK resource up at a different part of the university, things like targeting T cell metabolism to look at anti-tumor activation. We have some in the medical school looking at designing mRNA and CRISPR Cas technology using in dental pulp cells. We have some in infection and immunity, looking at neuroinflammation and metabolic rewiring in Toxoplasma gondii. We have some in the School of Molecular Biosciences, looking at rare genetics of diseasing, aging, biosensors for use in examining metabolite sensing G protein coupled receptors. And we have quite a lot in the School of Cancer Sciences as well. So they range from looking at radiotherapy in brain tumors, looking at the role of glycans in arthritis, cancer immunology. So you can see there's a vast range of projects there. So lots for our students to choose from. So those types of projects are similar to what the MSc students will be offered in the summer semester as well. But I'll let Catherine talk a little bit more about the MSc programme.
Yeah, so for the MSc students in semester two, that is still a taught semester for the MSc, and you choose three different options courses, which are shared across several different master's programs. So there's a range of different courses. Some of the ones we've got are quite focused on particular disciplines. So we've got neuroinflammation, emerging viruses, cancer, microenvironments, and biomarkers, for example. Some are a bit broader. So we have one on using animal models to study diseases. We've got one on developing your skills working with animal models. There's one on medical communication, so learning how that very specific skills of communication in a medical environment. And we also have quite a few courses related to bioinformatics, so learning how to use R to analyze data, how to analyze clinical data using R and understanding the statistics are important there. And we've got three courses on R and bioinformatics that build on each other. And what this means is if students would like to, they can select all three of those bioinformatics courses and then go on and do a bioinformatics project in the summer. And then you can get an endorsement on your master's degree at the end, which says you have this specialism in bioinformatics. So you can choose to do that as you go along or change your mind. You don't have to pick it when you apply for the master's, but if you decide when you're here that that's a specialism you'd like to focus on, then we do have that opportunity because we have a lot of skills and researchers who can teach you those skills whilst you're here. So yeah, it's got a range of different courses depending on your interests to help you build your knowledge or develop your skills for what future career you want to go on and do. We then have another compulsory course which is about developing your particular skills in reading the literature and planning a project. So there's a research proposal based on a topic of your choice. And that helps set you up with the sort of research thinking type skills that you'll need as you move into your summer project, which runs from mid-May to end of July.
Perfect. Somebody actually asked if they apply for one of so the MRes or the MSc, but then think, oh, actually, I'd rather do the other one. Are they able to change?
Absolutely. So we have a point in towards the end of semester one where we will invite students to apply to change courses if they feel that the program that they're on is not suited to themselves, so they would rather go on the other program. That is competitive. So you'll hand in a written application, and then myself and Catherine probably will interview you for that. And it will depend on how many students apply for that, how many projects we have for that cohort of students, because obviously we have a dictated number at the beginning of semester of students. But we have had a number of students that do swap over to the other program in past years. So that's totally possible, yes.
Perfect. And whereabouts are the classes typically held? Are they on main campus or do they move about a little bit?
So most of the talk components are on main campus on Gilmore Hill, but then obviously for projects it will depend where your supervisor is based. So that might be at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, it might be up at the Garscube estate. So there can be some variability there as well.
Ideal. And then I know there's no such thing as a typical week because it'll obviously differ depending on what courses you select and that, but what should students expect? Because it is quite different from undergrad, isn't it? A postgraduate.
So with a master's, with the talk components, you can typically expect to be on campus most days a week. Um, 3, 4, 5 days a week, and it varies. We're not able to say you're always in on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. It will vary. And on the days that you're in, you might have one session of 2 hours, or you might have a couple of sessions that might add up to 4 hours. So it's quite variable, but it's quite intense. There's a lot going on. I know there's another question about working part-time. So I think if you'll be able to correct me, you two, but there's a limit to the number of hours you can work part-time. I don't know if it's 16 or 20 hours.
20 hours.
20 hours if you're here on a tier 4 visa. Um, and I would say that's really the maximum that you should be aiming for because our programs are very intense. And because of the variability in the timings, it can be harder to commit to a job that says, right, we need you here every Wednesday or Friday or whatever. So, if there's something you can do on weekends or in the evenings, that's fine. But it's challenging, and you have to be committed to be able to manage that amount of time alongside your studies, I would say.
And I would also add to that, so we do have practical courses as well, which will run 9 till 5, 5 days a week for a few weeks in semester one. And then when you go into your projects as well, there is an expectation that you will be engaged in your project from 9 till 5 for 5 days a week. So yes, as just reiterate what Catherine says, it is very intense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just finding the happy sort of balance, isn't it? That your part-time work doesn't overtake your studies because that 12 months goes fast, doesn't it?
Absolutely. There are many, I mean, most of our students do work to a certain extent, but they do find that there is a limit to what they can actually commit to in terms of that work.
Yeah. One of the questions that we were asked was about the projects, and I suppose it depends what the list is each year, but someone was asking about are there options for cancer-related research projects?
So there are lots. So I gave some examples there. We work closely with the School of Cancer Sciences, but we also have researchers right across the college which work in cancer. We have a huge range of different projects. That is variable every year. And what I would say is that it is supervisors that provide those projects. You will have some ability to kind of put your own ideas in there, but usually they're based around what research is already going on in laboratories across or research groups across the college. So yeah, there's lots of different projects that you can choose from. Yeah. Sorry,
Maybe just to add about the sort of
question.
about choosing projects.
Yeah.
So as Elaine said, the projects are offered by supervisors, so you don't have to come up with your own. You choose from a range, and then you give us some of your choices, and we try our best to match you up with a project that would interest you, with a project that's available. But because we have to do this across many different programs, we can't guarantee that you're definitely going to get a project on the topic that you want. But we will nearly always be able to give you something in either the general field or in the sort of general types of techniques. But we don't say that we can guarantee you'll be able to do precisely what you're looking for. Maybe on that topic, there are other master's programs in the college that are more specialized. So there's a master's on cancer, there's a master's on infection biology. So if you're very focused on a particular area, you might want to look at some of those other masters and think, well, what is it you really want to work on? And those programs would ensure if you do a cancer master's, then you will get a cancer project. So that's something to make sure that you're choosing the right master's program based on your general interests.
I think that's a really good point to make, actually. It's not, yeah, it's not something I've really thought about, but that makes perfect sense. Um, and you've kind of touched on it as we went through the questions, but can you tell us a wee bit more about the various assessments that students will have?
Yeah, so the assessments are quite varied. We try and kind of assess student skills over lots of different platforms. So there are essays, there are presentations. So you've already heard speak of posters and oral presentations. There's lab reports and obviously your project reports. You also have viva voces, so oral examinations at the end of projects for our program. Your lab supervisor will be looking at your research skills and your ability to work within your research project as well. So there's a kind of performance grade in terms of your research as well. Have I missed anything, Catherine? I think.
I don't think so. No, I mean, I think it is definitely a feature of probably all the master's programs that we're inviting you to develop your skills across a range of things. And whilst there may be one or two things that you would recognize as an exam, we are certainly not assessing your ability to memorize information and write down as much as you possibly can within a certain time. It's very much about developing understanding and critical thinking skills, and as I said, your ability to present that science in whatever format is demanded, whether it's a talk or a report or a proposal or whatever. So, very much preparing you for your future career, whether that's in research or in industry or in something completely different, you'll still need these skills of critical thinking and preparing the right sort of output. So for some students, it is quite a change in the way that you're used to studying and the way that you're used to being taught. And we do give you lots of support to help you adjust to the way that we do things here in Glasgow and in the UK.
Nice. That's actually a nice segue onto, we've had quite a few questions about careers and PhDs. So the first one was, does the programme support progression into PhD studies?
Yes, so I think if you're very focused on wanting to do a PhD and you've had a bit of lab experience, so you know that's what you want to do, then you might want to consider the MRes uh, program because that will give you longer experience working in a lab and develop your research skills. But if you're not quite so sure or you want to increase your range of understanding through the different options courses, then absolutely a MSc will also prepare you for a PhD, but you just have a bit less experience in the lab by the time you finish.
Yeah, I think we have some data on kind of past students as well. So there are a fair percentage of our students that we know of that go into PhDs after the program's about 30 to 50% of our students over the last few years. But there's also students that go into lots of other careers as well. So um, some of them kind of research associated, so they might go into technicians' jobs or research assistants, but also within the biomedical or life sciences industries as well, within either it can be in any kind of any facet of those industries. So it's not just in the lab. So people go into project management or kind of quality assurance as well. We've had students go into kind of teaching or banking as well because we've got a lot of transferable skills that you will be kind of will be developed over the course of the programs as well. What I would say as well is there's no natural progression to a PhD within the University of Glasgow here. It would be applying for PhDs, but we give you lots of the skills that you require to go forward with that.
Maybe just for transparency, that for international students getting funding to do PhD in the UK is challenging. So I wouldn't want to give you the impression that doing a master's here means, oh, it's going to be easy to find a funded PhD place in the UK. You certainly have the skills and the experience, but you may need to look in a range of different countries to find a PhD that has a funding scheme that works for you.
Yeah, and I guess as well to point out that many of our students do that have done a PhD eventually have done other work in between as well as to kind of build their skills even further.
Yeah, and I suppose for PhDs, it's probably because the funded element of it, a lot of them, you need to keep an eye on the closing dates as well, don't you, for applications, because it might be earlier than you think it is. Um, I think these two questions are linked, but correct me if I'm wrong. So one of them was as an internationally trained medical laboratory scientist, does this program help me become a UK recognised scientist? And then the other one was, can I become a biomedical scientist in the UK after this MSc?
So I think that's definitely linked, those two questions. There's no direct ability to go from this program, so we're not credited. So in the UK, you need to have completed an accredited degree to go into biomedical science. So we have had students that have trained as biomedical scientists in other countries and then converted within the UK, but that has been largely based on what they've done before, and then obviously the skills they've developed over the course of the masters. But you have to have that background as well, and it is challenging to get in. So there's a lot of regulations around biomedical scientists within
So
the
just to
NHS.
clarify what we mean there by biomedical
Yeah.
scientist, it's someone, as I understand it, who works in a hospital diagnostic setting, so as part of the National Health Service, and they are processing samples, doing diagnostics that feeds into the NHS. So it's a very specific use of the word. Um, if you want to do biomedical related research in a university or in a company, that is completely separate, and our degrees would give you very useful routes into doing those sorts of things.
Oh, thank you. It must be a popular job route, the fact that we've had a couple of questions based on it. One thing I think we're always asked this as well, about preparing to start your MSc or your MRes. Is there anything that students should be doing between now and September to give them the best start?
I think we do a lot of molecular and cell biology in semester one, and we do give you training, as Elaine said, in the lab and through classes. But if that is an area where you feel maybe it was a little while ago that you last learned about transcription, or that you don't quite remember what PCR is, that is something that you could remind yourself either with standard undergraduate textbooks or YouTube videos, that sort of thing. I think maybe another area to point out is so with our English language skills, so we have a certain minimum level of language, same across many other universities. But those standard entry for IELTS, for example, they don't deal with technical language, so the professional words you would use when learning about biology, molecular biology. So some students find that quite a steep learning curve when they come here to learn the English words for things like PCR, transcription, polymerase. So again, if that's something that you're not familiar with those English terminology, I think that's a really important area that you could practice before you arrive in September. It's something we're looking towards doing, is preparing some materials to support students before they start, but I'm not sure it'll be ready for this summer.
Perfect. Did you want to add anything, Elaine? Or?
No, I think Catherine's covered everything there.
Perfect. We've just had a question pop through. What are the opportunities for RAs? Would that be a research assistant and a TA, so a teaching assistant, maybe?
Yeah.
During the 1 year's master's programme?
So because of timetabling, it's not really an option which is available to you. Also, usually for our teaching assistants, certainly at master's level, we would expect them to be engaged in a PhD at PhD level at that stage. So that realistically, we get asked this a lot by students because I think it's much more common in other institutions, especially outside the UK. But it largely because of the timetabling, it would be very difficult for students to be engaged in those sort of activities. There are other opportunities, I would say, within the university, though. There's quite often adverts for interns to help with various teaching research kind of activities, or within student well-being as well. So there are opportunities within the university that do fit better with timetables, but not directly with kind of teaching.
Perfect. And then there's another, well, it's one question, but several questions. So we'll maybe go for one at a time. So how many modules run simultaneously in each semester?
So in the first semester, as Elaine said, we've got 3 courses, and they run parallel to a certain extent. They all start at the beginning of the semester and run throughout the rest of the semester. We work hard to make sure that any assessments are staggered so that we fit the assessments across all 3 courses so it works for you. But yes, you do have to manage several different things going on. And so time management and planning what you do when is something that is important to help you manage with all your assessments.
I think even in semester 2, whilst the courses run kind of run after each other, so separately, the assessment, there still will be some degrees of other activities that you've got to do during each of those courses that's associated with other courses.
Perfect. And then the second part of that question was how many optional modules can we choose?
Okay.
So with the options, they're in 3 blocks. There's a 3-week block, another 3-week block, and then a 5-week block, and you choose one from each block. And there's a range of different choices within each one.
Perfect. And all that, all those courses are actually linked on the programme webpage, so you'll be able to get a wee bit more information about all of them as well. And then the last question was, are there dissertation opportunities outside UofG?
They're not very usual, I would say. It's not, it is possible to do them outside of UOG, but generally because the projects are actually given by the supervisors, it's more typical that they're actually part of University of Glasgow staff.
Perfect. Well done for answering those 3 of them at the one time. There's another question that's popped through there, but it's linked to the funded PhD, so I don't know if you've joined a little bit later, but you'll be able to go back in the recorded version because we did cover that, which is good. That is all the questions, though, that we've covered and all that have been submitted beforehand, so that's good. I don't know if there's anything that we've not touched on that you'd like to mention, or I can't think of anything that we've missed.
I think the only thing I didn't say was for the MRes, there's also an option for endorsement as well. So they're all in the programme documentation and on the web, although that's a little bit, so there's no anatomy anymore if you're looking at the web pages. But there is, if you do your projects in a certain area, then you would have the opportunity to, if you wished, to have an endorsement on your degree.
Perfect. And a job for me to update the website. Well, that's great. That's us just at the end there of the time. But thanks very much to our panel for taking time out of their busy day. And hopefully everybody watching has found that really useful. If you do have any further questions, there is an email address on both of the web pages. So please do drop your questions there and we'll get back to you. And like I said, we'll share the recording shortly with you to watch back in your own time. So thanks again. And hopefully we'll see you all come September time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.